Kei tua te awe mapara.
Ai, kia ora tātou katoa, nau mai piki mai, haere mai ki tēnei wāhanga kōrero, e pāna ki tēnei mate karawhiua I roto I te hapori I tēnei wā. Nō reira, I roto I tēnei wāhanga, nau mai piki mai, haere mai, ko Kawhena Woodman, ko ia te Strategic Advisor Māori for the Ministry of Education. And so today we're going to be putting to him some pātai that you've sent in, just answering some of the questions that are at the front of mind for our whānau out there. So no mai, piki mai, haere mai, Kawhena. Maybe tell us who you are. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, ko manga turo te manga, ko ngā puna wai te awa, ko ngā pohi te iwi, ko ngā te rangi te hapu, ko ngā whai te marae, ko pene tau I te tangata ko Kawhena Woodman taku ingoa. Ka tupu au I kai kohe, ka mārena au, kuraina au, whānau pepi hoki, I kai kohe, ka tahi, ka mahi au I te tāhuhu o te mātauranga. This is my 20th year with the Ministry of Education, and the majority of my time has been alongside our kura and our rumaki in Tamaki. My role now is working alongside our iwi mana whenua in Tamaki, Heringa Waka. So really happy to be along today. I have 3 children. I have six grandchildren, and nice to be able to have this conversation with you, Whai Pauline, and to share this with the whānau. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe Kawhena. Look, you're in the hot seat today. I roto I te tūru wera. Our first pātai says, what does education look like while we're in the red? We're in the traffic light system, and we're currently red throughout the country. What does it look like for early childhood, primary, secondary, in our kura, in our kohanga reo?
Yeah, you know, this has been a change in how education looks like in the last 2 years of the pandemic. There are positives that have come out of it, such as, you know, some of the cases that have increased opportunities to connect with you, your kura, and with kaiako, the opportunity for whānau to be part of that journey and to build those relationships during this pandemic. You know, sometimes it feels like whānau and tamariki have kind of borne the brunt of this, the impact of lockdowns that we've had, missed out on key events, milestones in schools, socialising with whānau and those key connections, and actually looking at a new way of learning with their kaiako. So we want to take this opportunity to sort of whānau to reclaim that context that we knew from before. And what we've sort of seen from education perspective is that can be done in kura and in kohongahunga. And, you know, the kura, kohongahunga, the kaioko and the kaimahi, they've done a really big job during the pandemic, and there's a whole lot of things here that they've had to juggle really, really well. And schools are working their hardest to make that possible, make it safe. And then the tricky part also is kind of hybrid learning, thinking about, okay, we can do this at kura and we can do this at home, and how do we blend that it doesn't become, oh no, we've got to stay home because noho haumaru. We want it so schools, the challenge for schools is to have that program that's running at school that's also able to be supported at home. Read through the comms that are coming back from school, any online opportunity in schools. As you may see now, it looks different when your babies go to school because we drop them off at the gate and pick them up at the gate. So we don't have that opportunity to have that, you know, sometimes those morning things and the afternoon opportunities with the kaiako. Those don't happen so much anymore. So I think that our huri is about when the school has an online event, take that opportunity, having the apps, the masks, and hygiene, and just trying to tracking all of that at one time. And especially for our babies who are just aren't in a place, aren't old enough to be vaccinated. So it's building the system around it. What we do at home too, maintaining, we have whānau coming in, we maintain our distance, and like, our most vulnerable, our babies. We need to have a think about how we all work together on how that happens.
So we can look after all of that and help prepare them and support them to go to kura, and really positive messaging about going back to kura and that it's actually safe, and we're wearing our masks, we're washing our hands, all of those things. It's it actually, I think what I garner from what you're saying is reach out to the kura, use the means that you have to communicate with them. It's not always going into the classroom these days. It's going to be by email or even online, with the various means. So schools and teachers hopefully are all set up to be able to do that. So we're going to have to learn how to reach out in a different way. The other thing I think to remember, and from my time when I had my tamariki at Kohanga and Kura, was that those are places and schools are whānau led. If you want things instilled there, then you have the mana, you have the ability to actually advocate and look for that in your kura. So, kawe mataku, kia kaha, kia maia, and rock up to your school, by phone, by email, and put your thoughts forward. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. There are some, and I've seen it on social media, parents thinking about homeschooling, and you get the Facebook inquiry that says, does anyone know or experience what homeschooling could look like, and what sort of things would I have to do, etc. What resources and support are there available for parents maybe shifting to homeschooling if they feel that that's the way that they want to go, the pathway they want to go down or are contemplating?
By Pauline, that's a quite a big question. Whānau, like I said, the first thing is about going to kura, reaching out to the kura, being confident that your baby is being catered for in the programs that are there, and you've kind of exhausted opportunities with the school, because it's a big step to being able to have the programs that school, and like I said, coming back to the hybrid learning, those are things that the school has provided that are at a level, at a stage for your babies, whereas homeschooling is a completely different process. The ministry responds to applications. We can provide a link for whānau who may be interested in, if they've gone down that path of, okay, we've worked with the school, actually this is difficult for me, and I need to find out a little bit more information. We can provide provide a link where whānau can have a look on the website, read some information, because it's quite a process. Teaching, being the responsible ones for the teaching and learning at home, as a full-time thing rather than just for the pandemic. So the whānau needs to have a good think about that. That's always been possible under the Education Act, and so yeah, whānau need to have a good think about it.
It's useful to know that there is a link there, and that you can be supported as you're even thinking about it, and perhaps as you go on to transition into homeschooling. And no doubt it's not something that's simply sort of gone through. It's quite a process, as you say, but by the same token, the option is there for our whānau if they're thinking about going down that pathway. If, with the advent of Omicron, if a child at our kura arrives or has tested positive, will the kura shut down?
That's a real good question. Schools and kura are all planning for that, and it's a different situation for each kura. Depending on the size, they're making sure that those close contacts are traced, and that the kura is aware of those close contacts. Ideally, the kura wouldn't close, but some have. That's again, it's maintaining that connection with the kura, because it all sits with the schools and the kura to decide how that might occur. Certainly trying to get that information from the kura leadership, working with them to get a good idea on where things are.
What's the process for if a child tests positive? Who notifies who? Now under this phase 2, it's all reliant on your self-notification and letting people know. Who does that in regard to a school? How would you know?
That's where we draw the guidance from Ministry of Health, that they receive that the first notices, and they inform the Ministry of Education. They inform schools and of the cases, and schools work with us with cases, and generally those cases will be at home isolating with their close contacts. And I guess right now that's the tricky part, is positive cases in home and making sure that they have that opportunity to isolate and be safe.
And I suppose if we do test positive, it really is good to let people know, let whānau know, let close networks, and also if your tamariki are at school, it's always a good idea to let them know so that they can take the necessary precautions, I think. And do what you would like other people to be doing for you, I suppose, is the way to think about that. Look, if one of my tamariki or mokopuna is unvaccinated, and this is a little bit close to my heart, I have one who is, and she's still contemplating that. Will they miss out on opportunities such as sports camps, going on excursions and things like that? Will they be ostracised from kaupapa that's going on in school?
Yeah, I hate to be a bit of a scratch record, but this is a kōrero with the kura. If the activity is in relation to the curriculum, all tamariki need to have access to that. Outdoor ed, PE, everything has to be done in an outdoor environment, which isn't, we've got to make sure our unvaccinated students have equal access to education, and are not facing unreasonable focus on them. Those are choices people have made in the school environment, where the curriculum, it's part of the curriculum. They have the right to have that, so that's good. If some schools might go out and have services, but from other providers, the providers need to know about that, and I'm thinking about swimming and the likes, where they would need vaccinated, and they would need vax passes and things. Those are the negotiations the school needs to have with the provider too. So those, again, whānau need to just have that kind of conversation with the kura, so that this doesn't become a surprise. Sometimes with camps that are outside of that curriculum area, again, nā te ki o te kura he whakautu, so those are things that whānau need to think about for their babies.
Kia ora, Kawhena. We've come to the end of our pārtai for this session anyway, and I'm sure there's a multitude of other questions that can be asked. But I think one of the observations I make as a grandparent, as a great grandparent, is that We have a place as parents and whānau to support our tamariki, and we should be in education wherever they are, whether they're at kura, early childhood. We can get help, and that's what Whai Maia and Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei has been part of that wider iwi and Māori health provision across Tāmaki. That's what they've been doing, and we can reach out and ask. And the main thing is that we are in charge of the destiny of our tamariki. And even though we've got a lot of constraints and restrictions and guidelines and traffic lights, determining that we're still the parents who have the ability to advocate on behalf of our children. Hei oranga mō rātou. They are at the taonga, the tino taonga, and they are our future. So I just, for all our whānau who are watching, just kia kaha. We have the Ministry of Education taking this, are there for us in all sorts of ways. Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei, or your nearest provider of health, is always there as well. And your kura and your school is part of you. It's not a separate thing. They're not over there by themselves. So kia kaha tātou katoa, kia haumaru te noho. So wherever you are, what is that whakatauaki? Ko te manu e kai nei te mātauranga nō nā te ao. His is the world. So kia ora tātou katoa. Hei kona.
Hei kona.